Good morning, everybody. It's really good to see you. And it's very exciting to start this new course. Um, it seems as though for some of you who have been in this ongoing seminar for a while, that this shouldn't be that different because I've used video clips before. But in a way, it feels very different to me because it's an experiment in what I think will be a new wave of teaching. And that new wave of teaching seems particularly relevant to Gene Gendlin and to focusing. This whole thing will be about Gendlin's contribution to thinking, to therapy, to experiencing, and his contribution being the importance of what we're actually feeling, what we're actually in touch with, what is actually going on, rather than what we're saying about it. And we'll go into that a little bit more. But the way that Gene puts it is that it's not what we're saying, it's what we're doing in the saying. And it's the doing that we may not be aware of what we're doing. And so there's something about that, what we're doing and what we're feeling and what we're experiencing in the moment, that lends itself, I think, particularly to video. Gene wants us, when he's writing to us in his amazing papers, the whole Gendlin library is open to you, and there are amazing treasures in it that have nourished me my whole professional career for like 40 years or something, and always find something new. And now we're discovering how many treasures there are in the videos that we have of him and of Carl Rogers and of everybody, of you guys, of us. This will be a video. And there's a kind of immediacy of experience that we have in a video that we don't have in something that we're reading. But for other people, that's not true, that there's more experience in the precision of writing. So we're going to see, we're going to see about that in this experiment of at first I was going to assign papers to go with each video, but then I decided just to focus on the videos and to give you transcripts of them if you're a reader rather than a seer. So I think that that will be a very interesting way to go about things. So this week is our introductory class, but it's also about Carl Rogers and empathy and Gene Gendlin. And we have two little clips to show you, and hope that you got the other clips in time to view them before the class. But I know it was all at the last minute, so you might not have, but we'll have time with these videos. So let's take a breath. And come into our own bodies and come into this us that we see on the screen. Now here we are. Wow. This is us in this moment. notice as you look at the screen and you look at all of the people, how much you experience of each of the people. And then this combination of people, what, just let that in. You might not have words for it. Just let that in. And before we even talk about the class further, I want to do an introduction of you, right? Because this isn't me presenting to you or the videos presenting to you, but it's us together using these videos as a springboard for carrying forward these ideas. And we have some more people joining us here. Welcome, welcome. I stumbled upon a little introduction of you that I'd like to do with you when I was presenting something to an organization, and the people were the staff had to come to my presentation about focusing. So I thought, how can I get across what focusing is? And I asked them all to say why they came. And they said, oh, I need the credit. It's nice to get the time off. I really want to learn about focusing. This will help me. I don't know, these kinds of things. And then I did an attunement. And then I said to them, after the attunement of going into their bodies and coming into the room, what do you really want to get out of this workshop? And then, of course, the answers were completely different because it came from a different place. So I want to do that with you and ask you to just settle in. And then I'm going to ask you to come into your body. And then I'm going to ask you to just say something that you would want the group to know about you, or something that it inside, hi Arlene, it inside wants to say to the group. So that will be a different thing than if I ask you your names, where you're from, but you might want to say where you're from too, if that's important to what it inside wants to say to the group. Okay, can we try that? Can we, another moment there to come down into your body and take another breath. Another look at the us here on the screen. Then I wonder if I wonder if someone would just call on each person, because it will make it easier. Will that be okay? I don't think that's in keeping. No, we can't do that. Can we do that?
Well, what we could do is one person could begin and then invite the next person.
Aha, very good, Katerina. It's not in keeping with what we're trying to learn if somebody calls on each person. Okay, Katerina, can you go first? Well, I'll go first. What I want,
You go first, Lynn.
what it wants you to know about me is that what I'm teaching is so important in my life. This idea of that we are one interaction, and that we are interactive beings, and we're making the next moment together. And it's much easier for me to be excited about teaching it than to really feel it before the first class. I think, oh, I better be prepared and I better know what I want to say. And Jim reminded me, oh, it's not about how you're prepared or what you want to say. It's about the interaction. So I want you to know that I'm learning this as well as teaching it. Go ahead, Katerina.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Just breathing in all the many lovely people and places that you bring. And the continuing thread of, oh, we're going to listen a bit more to Jean, Carl Rogers, Lynn, and everybody. So, Jim, would you like to be next?
I wouldn't like to, but I'm willing to be next. I'm a therapist in private practice, and it's very hard being a therapist, and I'm here to make it easier, perhaps, and also just to be in the soup. And I'm going to call on Arlene to be next.
Okay. I'm not sure what I want to get out of it, but I know that when I'm here, I get quite a bit out of it in terms of being able to live my life in a richer way, just thinking in terms of mutual interactions, and certainly with clients as well. So I'm just open and feeling receptive and happy to be joining. Thank you. How about Georgetta?
I am living in Romania, in Bucharest. It's evening now, and I am here. Even if I don't know most of you, even my English is not good enough, and sometimes I am afraid that I don't understand. But it's some time to time I need a home, and this kind of group with people from focusing is like a home for me. And I like very much also the Lynn's energy, and I am happy to be here.
We're very happy to have you helping us build our home. And please tell us to slow down if we're talking too fast.
Yes, thank you.
Where are you speaking to us from?
From Romania, from Bucharest.
Wow.
And I forgot, I am a person-centered psychotherapist and focusing coordinator too, and I love focusing. And it's wonderful that always I can find something new in me and in my clients too. Thank you.
And who would you like to hear from?
Okay. Yes, Kate.
Hello, I'm from the UK. I'm from Manchester, and I saw the email and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And I've not joined anything like this before, so I'm amazed. I feel like with everything that's been happening in the world, my world has been focused, much more narrowly focused than I would like. And I'm really enjoying seeing everybody. And I already know Georgetta's from Romania, and I can see Katerina's from Vancouver, and I believe Lynn is in New York, maybe.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing about all of you and coming together in this way and connecting through time in a way with the teaching, the learning that we're going to do. And I'm very glad to be here.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're making this home, and we're making this broader universe together, and we're transcending time. Yes. And who would you like to hear from, Kate?
Oh, me?
Thank you, Kate. Hi, everyone. My name is Amichai. I go by Ami for short. I'm in San Francisco, California. Currently, I'm a student at California Institute of Integral Studies to become a psychotherapist. I'm in my second year, and I'll be starting my practicum just in the springtime. And I'm here because I fell in love with Eugene. Some things in me are fascinated by everything that I've come into contact with through his communicating what he's come into contact with. And I find myself always needing to jump into the deep waters by putting myself in community with folks that are more experienced and have more time working with and thinking about these things. And so that's why I'm here, to be in community with all of you, to absorb, to learn, and to also experience what comes up for me in this process. So thank you. And also I'm the folks that have been in direct contact with Eugene Gendlin are kind of like, the California word OG. Which it's kind of another generational thing. It stands for original gangster, but it kind of is the original folks that have been doing it and are there. So Lynn and other folks I might not be aware of, I'm also with Rob Parker doing the process model course through Focusing Institute. So just that's my way to kind of come into contact with some of the energy that was very much kind of, it's an origin of sorts.
I like
So
being
thank you.
a gangster.
Yeah, it's become like a colloquial term, and an OG, you're kind of one of the originals. Yeah. Okay, so I'll pass it to Marina.
Marina.
Thank you, Ami. My name is Marina. I am a counselor in private practice. I live in Vancouver. And it wants to really be here. It's been longing for a place like this that I sense it's going to be a resource for me, and like a gym where I can exercise the muscles of being okay in myself and being okay with the other, and getting to experience more this openness and this kind of awness that happens when we relax together. And I would like Liz to be next.
I just want to say that I could feel myself saying that.
Hi, me, Liz.
Yes, you, Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm in New York City. I'm a practicing psychotherapist. I'm a psychologist. I work in a psychodynamically oriented way, and I've been interested since getting more involved in focusing, in learning more about focusing oriented relational psychotherapy and incorporating those ideas and attitude into my work. And I've watched some of the Gene recordings in the past, but I'm looking forward to being able to learn about what's going on more and discussing that. And let's see, it becomes a memory game we used to play where you have to remember which cards were turned over.
Yes, I remember that.
Let's see, which cards haven't been turned over? Yoki.
Hi, I'm Yoka. I've known Lynn for quite a few years and been part of her Force Community Empowerment Group, and I'm also studying for my focusing certificate with Charlotte Hobart, and I've been doing editing work for Lynn's channels, the FOT channel, and Lynn's channel, and also for this class. So I've seen many of your segments while I was editing the video, and this time, I mean, I just love the title, Gendlin at the Movies, and it kind of brings something excitement. And I was like, oh, I can just see the video, the recording while I'm editing it. But I really felt this time like, it's maybe just more fun to be here while it happens, and to be part of a group, and to watch it, to be together while while watching and discussing Gendlin's the movies. Yeah. So that's why I'm here today. And I'm in New York City. And let's see who's next. Evie, I don't know if I pronounce your name right.
Yes, you pronounced it exactly as it is. So this is Evie from Greece. It is also afternoon as in Bucharest. We are in the neighborhood. I'm a person-centered and focusing-oriented therapist, and part of TIFI and on the road to coordinator. And when I saw the email, I said, whoa, this is very interesting. I've seen some of Jean's videos, but never had somebody to talk with right there. So when you invite Lynn or what eat inside wants, it said, I don't want to be alone. I want to share. So it was very touching when Georgetta, I think it's the name of the neighbor from Romania, said, I want a home. So this is something that expresses my eat as well.
Thank you, Evie. Now you have a hard job of who we want to hear from next. It's getting harder and harder, right?
We will make it easy. Gray.
Um, I'm in New York. I found out about focusing about 3 years ago and immediately launched into 2-year training with Charlotte Howarth, and have been attending Lynn's modules for a couple of years now, I think, at least. I wasn't particularly intrigued about the videos, but I watched the first two, and actually I was very pleasantly surprised. It was really very interesting. My main purpose in being here, though, is to participate in a group and to observe my reactions and my sense of connection and disconnection and how that fluctuates. Yeah. Oh, and then the next person, Gosha, my focusing partner and fellow student in Charlotte's course.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as Grace said, I'm a newborn focusing practitioner, and my sense is that it is very happy and saying, oh, now all the strands, all the ways you've been walking in your life came together in one place, and it is very joyful there, and also feels that has many, many questions. So my image is always like I'm coming here first to breathe the air. That is what is in the air. There's so much in the air of us, and the asanas that the being of your being, Lynn, kind of makes for me very special too. And so it's kind of how to say it, an osmotic learning. Like I feel that I'm taking in something by being here, and also so happy to see that it's in the movies, because for me those articles are difficult and they used to come in the last minutes when I saw movies. So, oh, that's for me. So that's my sharing.
Thank you, Gosha. And I apologize in retrospect for sending the articles at the last minute.
Okay, let me see. Sabana is the right way that I say your name?
Thank you. It's Sabane. It's not.
Sabane.
It's very hard to understand how to say it from that spelling. So thank you. Yeah, it's like 7A, but the V is a B instead. 7A.
7A. Let's all say it together.
7A.
Oh wow! I feel so honored. It's like a chorus.
Yes, it's a beautiful name.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't really know why I'm here. I came to focusing maybe about 10 years ago. I feel like through a side door, through Indigenous focusing oriented therapy, or IFOT, with Shirley Turcotte and Dara Williams, and have just been very interested and practicing and intrigued since then. But I don't really have a lot of familiarity with Eugene Gendlin himself, except the one or two things I've read. I read his main book, and like probably all of you, I get tons of emails and interesting things, but for some reason, the minute this popped in, I just had this very powerful response to it and was intrigued and signed up. And I apologize for being late, but I always have something right before this sessions. And yeah, and so I'm here now and delighted and just curious to see what emerges, and very drawn to the fact that it is recordings of him, which I've never actually watched. I'm a writer and teacher, and so a lot of my work is words and reading. And so I was intrigued by the idea of video and just sort of having that felt sense. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, welcome. And who would you like to hear from, Sebene?
Oh, right.
Last choice.
So BJ.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is BJ. I am situated in the southeastern part of the United States. And I'm paying attention now to this unique constellation of parts that's me, and this unique constellation of yous, and remembering our purpose today. I'd like to say that because of Lynn's videoing groups that I've been a part of, I have found that the video, if I intend it so, the video can change my life. The interacting that happens continues to happen in the video. I am a better parent and spouse and neighbor and pet owner and human being because I am willing to set myself before a recording of something in which I've been a part. So when Lynn offers this class, it's just perfect because I've watched lots and lots and lots of videos and not been transformed by them. I don't think I have to be in the video to be transformed by it either. I find myself, when interacting with people who Lynn brings together, and with Lynn, I find myself comforted, like at home. I find myself challenged, like at home. I feel all the emotions that one feels at home. And the wonder of these groups is that, unlike home, they keep going. They keep going and going. My imagination is that they'll keep going as long as Lynn is able, and that after she's gone, each one of us will keep that kind of home going if we intend to. Thank you all for being here. I don't know if there's anyone else to welcome.
Yes, there is. I can't see your name, Teresa.
Louise, I think the accents put people off calling me.
Teresa, welcome.
Teresa, welcome.
So it's actually a French name with an Irish accent, so it makes it a bit more difficult. So I'm in Dublin, and I when I saw the title for this course, I was my instinct was I wanted to understand more of Eugene Gendlin's work. So I am trained in focus, but I find that in the practice of it, but I find the philosophy, because it's process-based, is very difficult to read about. I need to experience a process and then read about what I've experienced, or as BJ was saying, watch it. It's very difficult for me to engage in process, in reading about process. So that was my initial piece. And then when you invited us, Lynn, to connect inside, it came back to other reasons why I've been part of groups like this, which was the deepening of the process, and not just the process, but it's like going to a deeper place. And I think I have found it maybe difficult here to find there's certain amounts of it, but the angle I look at it, at this kind of process from, it's difficult to find people who have this kind of conversation. So there's people who have the practice, but it's difficult to find a community. So that's why also for me, when Georgetta said about the home, and then Evie mentioned home, and then BJ mentioned home, and I was thinking that word keeps resonating for me, that it's something about a connection place that isn't happening in life. Like conversations like this don't happen outside of these environments. So I'm really glad to be here and glad to be part of this group. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Is there anybody else that we missed? I think that Teresa, that was a wonderful kind of summary that you gave. And this kind of conversation that happens, that helps us to feel like we have a home. What is this kind of conversation? You were saying,
Are you asking us?
yeah, I'm
Okay.
asking just a quick comment, what we mean by this kind of conversation. It's I think that's, I think we have a feel of it, but what is it?
I think people are listening to each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would love to get into a discussion of it, and we will later on, but I think just for now, let's have that as a placeholder. I think that Teresa also was saying that it's very difficult to read about process-oriented philosophy, meaning that Gendlin's way of thinking is a whole different way of thinking, and it's thinking with the feeling, thinking with the body. And this kind of conversation is a conversation that brings that process right into what we're talking about. So it brings together the ideas and the words with the immediate experience, and that's very difficult to find, and it's very exciting. It's very exciting to speak from our feelings rather than about our feelings, and that would be a little way of talking about focusing oriented therapy, that it's a therapy that where we're speaking from our feelings rather than about our feelings. And we could go on and on from there, but I want to just give you a little structure. So we're going from this, and the themes here that we pointed out are that that it wants a relational home. That the relational home is a term that Robert Stallero, a psychoanalyst, uses, that really it really embodies something about what's so important to us. That feeling of home and the feeling of being really listened to and speaking from our experience. So now I'm going to go, I'm going to shift gears to our structures. You're invited to come on a little early to say hello. You know, if you want to come on at 11:20, 11:25, while we're getting ready for our class and say hello to people, you're welcome to do that. I know some people can come on just on time or maybe even a little late, but that's available. Also, as part of making this relational home with Jean and with Rogers, I want to invite you to do some focusing supervision with each other on alternate weeks. And what that would be is that you'll be assigned, those people who want to do it, a focusing peer supervision partner, and you'll have a call, you'll decide on a time, and then divide up the time like we do in focusing, maybe a half hour each or 20 minutes each. And you will talk about your client, and the other person will not give you advice, but will reflect the deeper experience of what you're struggling with. Maybe they could throw in a moment of advice somewhere, but that won't be the emphasis. It won't be about helping each other by giving each other advice, but helping to deepen the experience. Yeah, Liz.
Does everybody here have clients and is a therapist? And if not, how does that work?
Well, we're going to talk about that, but I had decided we wouldn't talk about it today, the distinction, because we'll get off on the
right
track. But we will talk about that. Okay. If you don't have a client, perhaps for this course, you might offer yourself as a focusing partner, helper with someone, or you might designate someone in your life that you have a relationship with that you want to interact with in a more focusing way. So that would be how that would work. If you're a therapist and you're working with a client and you're worried about confidentiality, of course you won't use the client's name, but it's also not so it's not so important the particularities of the person's life, except as it is important to you, but more your experience of that person. And we'll talk more about that. But if you would like to try that, just put your name in the chat. And then I'm wondering if we have someone who would pair people up, and you'll just receive the name of the other person that you're partnered with and try that out and see what happens if you. Yes, Liz.
I volunteer to pair people up.
Oh, wow. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
A very important job. Okay. So put your name in the chat, and Liz will pair you up with a partner for focusing peer supervision on alternate weeks.
And also, is the idea here that we would rotate, that, we could
Yes.
do different people and not.
Yes, that's right. So you would have so your job continues. You would have a different.
Wonderful.
And you also might have somebody who isn't able to actually be here at this time because we have different time zones. So you may be paired up with someone who can only do this via video. So that might be another.
Lynn, should we also put our email address in the chat, or can you provide the list of email addresses to Lynn?
I'll provide the list of email addresses to
Okay.
everybody, because
All
there
right,
may be
great.
ways people want to communicate with each other.
Great. And Lynn, if you don't mind me volunteering for something, I know that sometimes you don't get the handouts and things that Lynn sends out. And if you don't, and you would like to get it right away, if you will email me, I would gladly get hold of it. If I hadn't gotten it, I'll get it soon and get it to you. And that might relieve Lynn of some housekeeping stuff. Lynn, does that sit well with you?
I'll take any help I can get.
Okay. My email address will be in the chat.
Yeah. And maybe this is a time, Jim, for you to talk about the website. Also, we have to have many ways of communicating here.
Can I just say that, okay, so in the chat, people are leaving me things and I wouldn't know how to save that. So I asked if people could email me, then you just have to know mine. But I don't know how to capture the chat.
I'll save the chat and send it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Yes.
So we have a website for this class, and we are, because we're in New York City, we can't afford to have a whole website for ourselves. So we have to share it with a roommate. And the roommate is the primary tenant, is focusingcommunitymempowerment.com. But we have a sub menu on the website, Focusing Community Empowerment, all lowercase, or actually the name doesn't really matter. You can change the cases around as you wish, .com. And if you go there, and you'll see that one of the submenus, there's a menu bar across the top, and one of the submenus says the Therapeutic Us. And that is our menu. And in order to access it, you also need a password. But the password is easy to remember because it's implicit, all lowercase, IMPLICIT. And your browser will probably save that password for you, so you won't have to continually remember it. And if you go there now, you'll see that there are a whole bunch of videos and things. In fact, everything that was in the email is in that webpage. And you can look ahead or look backwards, not too far backwards, because we're the first. And there are some sublinks on the bottom of the webpage, most of which don't do anything at the moment because they're for the videos of the class. And so far, we don't have any videos of the class because we're making it as we speak. But once I get that video, it will be up. And everything that shows up about the class in email will find itself somewhere on the website under that heading. And if you have any questions about it, you can, I was going to say email me, but then I have to give you my email address and you won't remember it. So email Lynn and she'll get in contact with me.
Jim, put your email address in the chat, and also the address of the website and the password implicit.
Okay, I will do that.
Katerina, I wonder if you would, or Jim, actually, would you email the chat to everybody, not only to Liz, so we'll all have those. And any message that you want to give to everybody else will be you can put in the chat, and that will be emailed to everybody. Okay, we're building the doors and the walls and the windows of our relational home here, right? We're picking out what kind of wood we want, what kind of wallpaper. So I see this house being built. Another element that I want in this house is the element of writing, because for our Help the Helpers group, and we should also put that in the chat. It's a wonderful community for helpers. If you're in the time zone where you can make it on Monday mornings, New York time is 8:15 to 9:45. Let me see, what was I going to say about the
Writing.
Oh, writing. Thank you. Thank you. I need, yes, writing. We had the month of August as writing month, and it was amazing what people could write, in 5 minutes. And what I would like to invite you to do, we will have writing exercises, and I'm hoping to have one today. Let's just hope that we don't run out of time. But the writing exercise actually will only take 5 minutes. But it also might be a really nice way of starting your focusing peer supervision, is to spend 5 minutes together writing about or from your client. And I'll talk about that a little later. And I think we will have time at the end for that. So we have our communication, I think, our network, sort of like our electricity going, and I think we're doing well building our house. Let's take a breath. What did I leave out anything? It's interesting because we're going to talk now about Carl Rogers and Jean Gendlin. I just wanted us to notice that when we spoke from it, there wasn't really anybody who wanted, maybe one person who wanted to learn more of the concepts and ideas and theory. It was mostly that we wanted to live it together, and found it such a rare opportunity to live these ideas, not just to read about them. So I want to notice that. We're talking about Carl Rogers and Jean Gendlin, and Carl Rogers had this lovely analogy that I've always enjoyed, that when you are working with a client and his whole big thing is empathy, what empathy means is that you become an ongoing guest in the person's house, in the person's inner home, and you notice all these things about the house very respectfully. You notice the shelves and what there's on the shelves and the pictures, and you notice the leak in the ceiling and feel what it must be like to live with that leak right over the kitchen table. And he's distinguishing empathy from identification. He says that when you start calling the plumber, then you've crossed over from empathy into identification. And that isn't helpful. You're no longer a respectful guest in the person's house. You begin to think it's your house, So I love that analogy for so many reasons, but one, because it's an analogy about a house. You're making a relational home with the person, but the person gets to choose to the person's what the person is after in the house. For Carl Rogers is what's important, not what the therapist wants. And then in those days, in the days of Carl Rogers, it was sharply distinguished from the psychoanalytic world, where it was what the society wants, what the therapist, the analyst, as a representative of the society wants. So what happens in therapy is that I think it's more like the client becomes a guest in the analyst's home, and the analyst says, no, we're not going to put the table over there. We're going to put it here. This is the normal way to be. That's a pathological way to be, or something like that. So Carl Rogers was very much making a new paradigm by wanting the individual, the person, to be the center. And he called that client-centered therapy or person-centered therapy. And it was a time when understanding and valuing the and giving power to the individual and what's happening for the individual, the distinctness of the individual, was so important in making a completely new age. So let's take a breath. Let's take a breath while we take a tiny break, like 2-minute break, and then we're going to talk about Rogers and Gendlin and see a little clip, okay? So, welcome back. I'm just thinking about what a wonderful relational home we're making. People from everywhere.
Right.
It's quite wonderful, all coming together. And I'm excited that it's so important to so many of you to really connect with each other and to you know, I think of a houseboat. All get into this boat. You would have that analogy, BJ, I think, of the group being like a boat going somewhere together. So there's a couple of people who aren't back yet, but we're going to start and they'll catch up with us. Let's sort of start with what you think of, what you know about Carl Rogers. He was such a pivotal, fundamental force in the humanistic psychology movement and in our contemporary way of thinking about therapy. Just anything you know about Carl Rogers.
Well, like you said, the person matters. It's not fixing them up that matters. It's who they are that matters.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. It's not fixing them up that matters. It's who they are that matters. I love that. Anything else about Carl Rogers? He's like one of those figures that everybody knows a little bit about.
He might be the top prize winner in the general culture as a therapist, because unfortunately people will identify him as the one that just parrots back what the client says.
Yes, that there's that joke about the person says, I'm going to commit suicide and jump out the window, and the therapist says, oh, you're going to kill yourself and jump out the window, and then he jumps, and then the therapist says, plop. That kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yes. And in our video, we're going to hear what Jean has to say about that. So he is joked about. So he and Freud, I think, would be, you know, the people that are most made fun of and most known. So he reflects or parrots back, as the joke would be.
One thing I love about Rogers is this emphasis on the conditions and not the interventions, this kind of climate for transformation. Unconditional positive regards and empathy and the congruency.
Yes, yes, thank you. And I loved your bringing in the conditions, but the atmosphere of growth. And that's what we're sort of making here, right? Together, that atmosphere of unconditional positive regard that he then shortened to warmth. I don't know if they're the same exact thing, but they point to what Rogers was expressing as the atmosphere, the air that we breathe, genuineness or congruence, and then empathy. And what is empathy? Just anything that comes to anybody's mind.
Well, I was going to say, and I think it's connected, before you said empathy, that I think of Rogers as anti-authority or anti-authoritarian, and I associate that with the 1960s. And it goes along with empathy, that I'm not above you, going to tell you how to live, but I'm with you, feeling with you.
Yes, I'm feeling with you. I'm not the authority telling you how to be better. I'm not telling you who to be or how to be.
Empathy, as I understood, is to be in the shoes of the other person, to be close to his experience and frame of reference.
Yes.
And also to be in contact, to be in the relationship with your resonance like therapist, because this helps a lot to understand.
I love the way we're bringing in Quarles' essence here. To be empathic is to be walking in the shoes of the other, to take their perspective. But it's more than a cognitive thing. It's not just, oh, I have to look at it the way the client is looking at it. It's not an intellectual perspective as much as a whole being at home in the person's inner house and seeing what things mean to the person. Anybody else? What do you know about Carl Rogers?
I wanted to say that I've been touched watching the video, him saying that it's a process. Like you, Lynn, said that it's walking in the shoes of others, or like it's not a one moment, but being with moment by moment. So this was like something that I felt very touched by. It's not a one thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. The notion of empathy sometimes can be like, oh, well, I have empathy for the client and it's not working, as if empathy was this thing, you know, that you have. I do see the world through the eyes of the other, as if it were one glimpse. And as Carl said, and as you're saying, empathy is a process, moment by moment by moment. The whole thing can change in an instant.
I think empathy also has layers. And when I went to graduate school, and the first thing they talked about was empathy, it was like, what am I doing here? Of course, I know what empathy is, you know. And over the years, it's like layers and layers and layers of depth and beingness with someone.
Yeah.
It's so different than what you think.
Absolutely. Yes. We'll come back to that in a minute, Arlene. Anybody else?
Well, he was a professor of psychology at the University of Chicago at the same time that Jean was a professor of philosophy. And politically speaking, psychology was taken over by behaviorists, and at the same time that philosophy was taken over by the analytic people. So he and Jean shared a political fate, aside from their relationship to each other.
Yes. And Jean, as a young student of philosophy, before he became a professor, found his way to the counseling center and wanted to work with Carl Rogers in experimenting with Rogers' ideas. And so he worked on the project with Carl Rogers that many people know about, of examining many interviews of clients and therapists after the therapy was over. We watching the tapes or listening to the tapes from previous sessions, and they could tell which therapies would be successful by listening to only a short part of a tape and seeing how the people were, how the clients were speaking. And this is a research that's quoted very, very often. The result of the experiment was that it wasn't the kind of therapy, the kind of theory that was used, but the client's ability to touch into their inner experience that made the difference. And Carl and Jean collaborated on that. So I think we've brought Carl into this, and we want to bring Jean's relationship with Carl into it. What Jim sort of started that. And Arlene, what were you saying that I wanted to go back to?
I remember.
That empathy has layers.
Layers. Thank you, Ami. empathy has layers, and this maybe could start how Jean and
Yeah.
Carl collaborated. Jean was Carl's client and talks very openly about his therapy with Carl Rogers and how helpful. And Jean felt that that Carl's way of doing therapy was what can I say? Pointed in a direction that opened everything up for him. But Jean came at it as a philosopher, and he, in his growing professional identity, added this incredible, vast philosophical underpinning to Carl Rogers' work. Carl was not a philosophical person. He didn't think that way. Carl Rogers was he was very concerned about a way of being with people, and Jean loved that. But then Jean wanted to sort of look at what can we learn about that way of being? What is that way of being? What do we mean by that? Philosophy is a whole other way of talking, of thinking, of being. And Jean brought that richness to Carl Rogers' work. And Jean's philosophy incorporates Rogers' work, but goes very much further in many ways, thinking at the edge of so many strands of Jean's work, sort of incorporates, but then carries forward Carl Rogers' ideas. So when you were saying the layers of empathy, Arlene, I was thinking about how, Carl Rogers would say, yes, there are many layers of empathy, but Jean Gendlin would say, well, what do we mean by layers, and how could we articulate layers? And Jean was very concerned, as you maybe have seen in the video that we'll be talking about mostly next time, about the politics of listening. Jean was very concerned with the specificity of experience, not the ideas only, but how the ideas point to something that goes way beyond words or conceptualizations or ideas. And that opened up vast new worlds that were not touched with Carl Rogers' way of doing therapy.
So in a way, Jean added his own layering in a way to.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Right. He added his own layering of, well, what do we mean by empathy? What is that experience of empathy?
Yeah.
Lynn, it's BJ.
Yeah, BJ.
First, I just want to thank you so much as I'll be referred to you as an OG. It's just so lovely to hear how you saw and understood and experienced this relationship between the two of them, and then all that Jean added later. Is this a time you might address Liz's question, because it's the question that we begin to get pretty soon? Liz's question that, well, why did it not take off and become just a big phenomena right away after, say, he wrote Focusing in 1978 or 9?
Well, it's incorporated in so many things, but Gene was not somebody who waved a flag and said, you know, my method is focusing and you have to do it this way and pay me this much money for this level and this much money for this level, and you can't do anything and call it focusing if it's not my way. That's my short answer, but we'll go into that much later. But I want to capture something here that is very difficult to capture, so I'm not going to go in that direction right now. But in the direction of this, well, I picture it, this relational home, and then Gene's building this this foundation for it that broadens it and deepens it and also gives it wings. So I think those metaphors don't go together, but since we're not being logical only here, Gene's philosophy gives wings to person-centered therapy and contemporizes it in many ways. But there was something about, I want to see if I could express this in a experience near way. Carl Rogers was talking about a way of being that provides an atmosphere in which the person can grow. And this way of being, the therapist's attitudes, is a very important part of how the client can experience themselves and grow. That's an amazing kind of thing. And Gendlin, with his philosophical mind, wanted to know, well, what is that? Something about the therapist's way of being brings the client in touch with themselves. What does it mean to be in touch with yourself? What does it mean to grow? All of these are philosophical questions. And Gendlin introduced his own terms for what was at the base of this in touchness with this power to have, Carl Rogers talked about having the locus of evaluation in yourself, finding your own oars and direction, oars meaning in a boat. So Gendlin was looking at what that means and saying that in touchness is this flow of experiencing. And that's, again, what do we mean by a flow of experiencing? And Gene spent his whole career, helping us to understand it. But then he always said, you can only understand it by experiencing it. Understanding and experiencing are one thing. The big disagreement that Gene had with Carl Rogers was Carl Rogers said that the client has to perceive, has to know intellectually that the therapist is genuine, positively regarding him or her, and empathic. And Gene said, I know that's not true, because when I was Carl's client, I couldn't imagine how this professional middle class American born person could understand me, this strange. Now, I don't remember what he said. Maybe one of you will. This strange creature that I am, he said in something, but he had a word for it. But it was the feeling of, how could he understand me? I'm so different than him. And yet, what Jean was saying is underneath in this experiencing, he experienced Carl's empathy. Jean talked about how everything wasn't about what you think or perceive, but what you know, feel in the body, in the implicit, and introduce the whole dimension of implicit. Before, people talked about implicit. People would talk about what you think, what you know, your behavior, your characteristics, your personality, which was very thingified, reified. And then Freud was so revolutionary in saying, well, there's this whole big unconscious that motivates us. And that was a huge explosion. But the implicit is not the unconscious. The implicit that Jean was talking about is having a sense of something, an inkling of it, a feel of it. And Jean talked about how he was different already when he would climb the stairs before he opened the door of Carl Rogers' office when he was a client. He was already changed because he was breathing this air inside himself of being with Carl Rogers. And even though he didn't think that Carl Rogers understood him, he could feel understood. And we know this as therapists, right? Our clients may say, you don't care about me, you only want my money, you go on vacation just to have a break from dealing with me, or something like that. And they think that this way, and maybe this way, but there's some way down here that feels that it's worth telling you that because you do care. And they're betting on your caring or something. So it's that implicit level that Jean introduced. We're going to watch this little video of Carl talking about Jean. And I knew that our time was going to get away from us, but it did. It always does. Okay, Katerina, let's watch this little video of Carl. Let's make it big. Yes, great. We need the sound.
Carefully what we mean by empathy and what we've come to know about it. To
No, it's okay to start here.
formulate a current description, I would want to draw on the concept of experiencing as formulated by Gendlin. Briefly, it's his view that at all times there is going on in the human organism a flow of experiencings to which the individual can turn again and again as a referent in order to discover the meaning of what he is experiencing. He sees empathy as pointing sensitively to the felt meaning which the client is experiencing in this particular moment. In order to help him focus on that meaning and to carry it further to its full and uninhibited experiencing. An example may make more clear both the concept and its relation to empathy. A man in an encounter group is making some vaguely negative statements about his father, and the facilitator says, "It sounds though you might be angry at your father." "No, I don't think so." "Dissatisfied with him?" Perhaps." "Disappointed in him?" Yeah, that's it. I am disappointed in him. I've been disappointed in him ever since I was a child because he is not a strong person. I think that kind of an example, does illuminate Gendlin's concept in this way. Against what is the man checking these various terms? Angry? No, that isn't it. Dissatisfied? Well, that's closer. Disappointed? Ah, that matches the flow of, I think, visceral experiencing that's going on within. And a person has a very sure knowledge of that flow and can really tell when you're speaking to it. In other words, the right word taps the right label or the right phrase often taps the exact meaning of the flow that is going on within him that he hasn't been able to label or understand himself. It enables him to bring into awareness the real meaning of what's going on within. So with that conceptual background, I'd like to attempt a description of empathy which would seem satisfactory to me today. I would no longer be terming it a state of empathy, which was in my earlier definition, because I believe it to be a process rather than a state, and perhaps I can capture that quality. The way of being with another person, which is termed empathic, has several facets. It means entering the private perceptual world of the other and becoming thoroughly at home in it. It involves being sensitive moment to moment to the changing felt meanings which flow in this other person, to the fear or rage or tenderness or confusion or whatever that he or she is experiencing. It means temporarily living in his life, moving about in it delicately, without making judgments, sensing meanings of which he is scarcely aware, but not trying to uncover feelings of which he is totally unaware, since this would be too threatening. It includes communicating your sensings of his world as you look with fresh and unfrightened eyes at elements of which he is fearful. It means frequently checking with him as to the accuracy of sensings and being guided by his responses. You are a confident companion to him in his world. By pointing to the possible meanings in the flow of his or her experiencing, you help him to focus on this useful type of referent, to experience his meanings more fully and to move forward in his or her experiencing.
It was beautiful.
What did you get from that? I just love that clip. It has so much the essence of Carl Rogers in it, and also how Carl Rogers was being fed by Jean and what he was taking from Jean. Just what did you experience when you were watching this?
For me, there's the notion of temporarily living in their life. And before Liz said, feeling with, and I think it's feeling with an openness to anything and everything that might arise and being with it.
Yes, yes. And what did he, if just in a couple of words, what did he say Jean was conceptually adding to this? Notice he was using Jean's conceptualization to then say what he was trying to say about empathy.
think at a high level that it's not a state and that it's a process. Something that resonates for me for that.
Anybody else?
Well,
He
also
was,
there
I
is,
think, oh,
go ahead.
go ahead, Gosha.
That there is something about the precision of the language of really, sorry, I live in New York City. Yeah, the precision of language and really understanding the heart of what someone is expressing.
Yes. The heart. I like the way you say that, of what the person is expressing. And the heart is the, the crux of it, the center of it, but also the feeling of it, our hearts, right? The meaning of it, the deep meaning of it, sensing that, noticing it isn't understanding with our minds that only. I mean, that's in there, but it's sensing, which that word sensing is so important to Gendlin because it both has in it the sensuality of sensing and something about the process of sensing.
I think that he made Jean contribution. He made more clear the interconnection between mind and body, and what he later calls a zigzag or something. It's so empathy. It's something that I understand. There is a concept, but there is a concept that it is supported by something that is going on in the body. The moment by moment, I'm trying to understand my client.
Yes. And
maybe he deepens, excuse me, maybe he even deepens more the notion of congruence, because empathy is something that goes at the same time outside, listening to you, that you are my client, and inside my experiencing, trying to understand you, trying to see things from your point of view.
Yes.
But what's going on at the same time inside me?
Yes. That's beautiful that it's expanding our notion of empathy. And in Jean's philosophy, he talks about there are two people, but there's one interaction. And that one interaction we're sensing with, and that word sensing again is both you sense with your body, but you sense with more than your body. So Jean's idea of body is more than the physical body. And that sensing is the sensing of the well, in my language, the sensing of the us. Of empathy is not about just going into the other as if the other person were a separate thing and I leave myself and I go in there. It's not that at all. It's this entering into the us and feeling the other's part in this us, what they're contributing to it.
I liked what he said about as you're with the other person and sensing what they're trying to articulate or mean, there's a flow of experiencing that's going on all the time. And if we do it right, then we match something for them that allows a new awareness, a new stability, a new presence.
Right. It opens it up.
It is really, I hadn't ever thought of it quite that way. That's really nice.
Yeah, I think of it as getting the ball in the basket. as I always say, I know nothing about sports, but when I'm trying to really listen in that empathic way, I think all I have to do is get the ball in the basket, which means, to me, it's my way of saying to myself, I need to find the words that will point to what the person is experiencing. I don't need
all of experiencing. Is that Jean's term? That, yeah.
yes.
One thing that I noticed is that for me, it seemed like Rogers was explaining a really short focusing session in 2 sentences.
Yeah.
With the client, with the therapist saying, it seems you're angry, and then the client noticing that, and then anger being the handle, and then that resonating, and then the release when no, it's disappointment.
Exactly. No, it's interesting when I watch this and hear Carl talking about Jean's philosophy, it feels like Carl doesn't quite have the whole way that something is not a thing. The psychoanalysts call it reifying, making it a king. So the labels for Carl, at least in my listening, are still things, but these things match what is happening in this flow of experiencing in the client. Finding the label may be a whole other part that Gene would say if he was the facilitator in the encounter group. What would you call that feeling toward your father? And the client would say, well, I don't know. And then the client would be looking for the word that is the name of this whole big thing. And Carl was providing some names, which is also a wonderful way of getting at that. But for Jean, the name of something is the handle. And I don't think that Carl really had that concept so much, but that Carl sort of had the experience of, that's it, yes, and how important that is to carry something further.
But it didn't originate from the client with Rogers.
And it wouldn't have to with Jean either if the client couldn't think of anything. But that would be the first place he would go, and the idea of finding a name or a handle was very important to Jean.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it like that there is so much in the air. This is something that struck me. There's so much in the air, and some of the, let's say, some things are coming into our awareness and some they just don't. And so this is about pointing together, like finding, pointing. And then what struck me is that it gives a meaning to this what is found.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought about it like so directly that it's like that. So this was important for me.
Yes, thank you. And you're highlighting the importance of meaning And that's a very vital part of Jean's philosophy, that there's a felt meaning. It's what it does, not just how we think of it. It's what it does in us. If the client is saying the same things over and over again, Jean might say to the client, pointing to his chest or something, is that here right now? Is it here right now? And the client might say, no, I'm just talking about it. But that idea of it being here, what does that, Jean might ask, what does that mean to you? I think about, I think it was a supervisee of mine or somebody else's, I don't remember, but the therapy got very bogged down with the client insisting over and over again that she was so depressed because of postpartum depression. And the therapist was saying, no, it's not postpartum depression. It's blah, 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 or could be blah, 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 but I don't think it's postpartum depression. And the whole therapy became this argument about whether the client had postpartum depression. And there's something a little bit absurd about it, but these things happen because it's the name of something. And I don't know if it was me, my client, or somebody else's client, but I had recommended or something that the therapist ask, oh, what is postpartum depression for you? What does that mean to you? And then a whole other thing opens up. Just that simple thing. What does that mean to you? How does that live in you? What does that do? These were all ways that Jean would point to that flow of experiencing. Another little distinction I want to make is at the end there, Carl Rogers said in his definition of empathy that the sensitive therapist wouldn't say the feelings that were completely out of awareness because they would be too threatening to the client, right? And I'm sure that's true. But for Jean, there would be a more important reason. What would that be? That Jean wouldn't say the feelings or the experience that was completely unconscious, completely out of awareness.
Do you mean, Lynn, that it couldn't possibly carry forward for the client because he wasn't aware of it, he wasn't sensing it?
Exactly. Right. So for Jean, I mean, of course, Jean wouldn't want the client to be threatened, but more importantly for Jean, when you put into words something that is being felt but hasn't been worded yet, it opens up, it carries forward. If you put into words something that is completely out of awareness, it probably won't do very much, won't do anything. Now, sometimes it will, and you can try that in some way that might come closer to what the client could have an inkling of. But for Jean, it was all about, you're saying something that will open things up, that will promote a happening, that will be a concrete experiencing between you. And you can try out anything. Jean would say, you know, nothing's working, try anything, and then go back to listening. And by listening, he meant Carl Rogers' reflection. So Carl Rogers talked about empathy, and Jean talked about listening, which meant listening with the body, listening to the bigger thing, not just listening with your ears to the words of the other person. So we have just, you know, a little over 5 minutes. I want to hear anything from you about the class and where you are, and we'll start from where we left off today in the next one. So we're going to watch next time the video of Jean as an old person reflecting on Rogers, and also Jean as a young person reflecting on Rogers. What will you remember from this class, or what will be dangling that you wished you had said?
Yeah, maybe just about the last thing you were saying. Yeah, that you shouldn't bring up what the other person is not aware of it yet. And I was, what came up was, I think, it's also really important, right? That person kind of inside knows her path, maybe.
Yes.
To the awareness thing. So it also has a better way to stay, you know, and the person can always come back to it because she knows the path.
Yes. There are many times when Jean will say to someone in a demo, do you have that now in such a way that you can come back to it later? And he won't stop the demo until the person has a felt sense of what they're talking about, so they can come back to it.
I had a sense of connection when we were watching the video about entering into the private perceptual world of the other, sensitive to the moment-to-moment felt meanings that flow in a person's experiencing. And it sparked something, connected with something in me, with some client work that I'm doing at the moment. And I felt a kind of, it was like a watering, a refreshing watering, a place inside me for the thought, the hope for the work next week when I meet the client again. So I take that nourishment that is, it's hanging, but it's a carrying forward hanging.
Yes. Isn't that wonderful? I'm hoping that this can be a relational home that has a fountain in the yard that waters us and nourishes us and sparks all kinds of feelings in us that can then be brought into our therapy work. That certainly happens to me when I watch these videos. We're going to have to stop, but I just wondered if you know, how was it different to have the class centered around the video rather than centered around the paper? Liz is saying she likes
So
it. Yeah.
it's more vivid in a sense. I sense it like Carl that we saw in the video was here with us.
Yes, Carl was here with us.
And I'm saying Carl because we saw Carl. If we
So
had seen
Carl,
Jean, yeah.
yes. And in a way, it was like Carl was accompanying us in understanding Gendlin.
Yeah.
Carl was trying to get a grasp of Gendlin's philosophy, and we are.
Is that video listed somewhere where accessible? Can
I sent it to you. I hope.
Where is it online on the
syllabus? Oh yes, and it's online. You can find it on the FOT channel. Jim, maybe you could put that in the chat, and my channel.
Lynn, you
Or
said
it's already on the website. All you have to do is
already
go to the
on the
website, and it's all the videos are right there.
Right.
Lynn, I'm wondering, you sent us a handout this morning that had the syllabus for the entire class in it?
Yeah.
I didn't get that, and apparently Arlene didn't either. Just
no,
saying. You didn't either?
The syllabus is on the website. Just go to the URL, and you'll see it's all there.
Jim, I looked at it and I saw the list of the videos, but I didn't see Lynn's message about what the syllabus would be.
I'll look into that, BJ, and see, because Christine is my assistant and she set this up. So I'll make sure that everybody, I think everybody is on the list that I got, but we'll make sure that you get everything, and Jim will make sure everything is on the website, my message, anything, any emails. And I'm hoping that we'll hear from you when you have your focusing supervision, peer supervision, and really look forward to seeing you next time.
Great.
Any messages to me, you can email me. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lynn.
Bye. Thank you.
I think this is a wonderful